All right, folks, we're gonna go ahead and get going. I'm gonna call this work session to order, September 3rd, 2024. We got two items on the agenda tonight. Sherwood West update, which it's been about a month since we had our last one, so it's actually good timing for it. And then the LOC legislative priorities ballot discussion. So, and then we'll adjourn and go to our regular meeting around 7. I have a feeling we might need some extra time for the Sherwood West update tonight, so if we run long, we run long, and we can always move the LOC update to after our regular meeting. So with that, let's just jump right in.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Rosener. So update on.
Can I just,
Please,
one thing,
please.
just, so staff has been doing a great job of getting us presentations early, and I just want to take the blame. This presentation came out a little late today. That's because it's been very fluid with Metro and a lot of meetings going on. And we want to make sure we have the most up-to-date information. So the fact that it came out this afternoon, blame me, blame staff. Staff has been, and Eric and his team have been outstanding on all of this and really responsive and working really hard. So I just wanted to throw that in before you jump in, and we'll be tag teaming this presentation just a little bit.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks for saying that. Yeah. So where we're at in the timeline, the Metro COO/staff recommendation report has been released. So we sent that around last Friday. So, all eyes right now are kind of on that as we look at the recommendation and figure out how the Metro Council, might take that recommendation, adjust it or not, and move forward, with their decision. We have our work session tonight. On Thursday this week, September 5th, the Metro Council will have a work session on the COO recommendation. And then through the first few weeks of September, that COO recommendation will go to MTAC, and also CORE, Committee on Racial Equity at Metro. At the end of the month, September 26th, Metro Council will actually hold a public hearing, not just a work session, but a public hearing on this. And then in October 8th, Metro Council will give direction to staff based on what they're seeing as the likely outcome of the ordinance for both the urban growth decision, forecast, population forecast, land capacity estimates, but also likely on Sherwood West specifically.
Sorry to interrupt. Do any changes happen to the COO recommendation anywhere throughout this process, or only after the Metro got direction?
So I believe the intent is to put the recommendation out there, accept all of the testimony, and then move forward.
After the work session, there might be changes.
So it's important that nobody other than staff can change that document. Impact could absolutely vote to recommend changes. Or give non-binding voting comments of changes that they want to see. That's the same with any group that this is presented in front of.
Same with CORE, do the same thing. MTAC presents their findings to MPAC. MPAC presents their findings to Metro Council.
That's that big packet that we received the other day that we went through, correct?
That was the COO recommendation that everyone will be taking a look at and providing comment on.
And the key on that is recommendations. They're not binding or anything on.
It's a staff report. It's like we would get staff report.
Staff report. Yep. I think it's the way to look at it. It's a staff report. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Great. And then let's see, in November 21st will be the first Metro Council reading of the ordinance, and then December 5th is the second reading of the ordinance and where they would make that final decision.
So presumably between the 8th of October and the first reading, whatever feedback has been given and Metro has directed the staff to say, change this, change that, change this, then somewhere between the 8th and the 8th of October and the 21st of November, those changes would be released for public consumption before the first reading.
Yes. I think it's safe to say we can ask Metro to confirm though exactly how and when exactly everything's going to happen.
I assume by public meeting law, they have to put it out there before the reading first.
Likely, yeah.
Unless there are no changes to the staff.
Thank you.
Proposal.
But at some point, they're gonna have to draft an actual ordinance.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Yeah, the ordinance would have to be,
It is a council to be out there and there's gonna, at a minimum, I mean, I'm not saying they'll do this and it wouldn't be how they've done it in the past, but the ordinance could just show up for that first reading and then they have a second reading, right? But,
okay,
but then generally we'll put that out beforehand.
thank you.
They never just show up, they have to post their public.
I was gonna
We
say,
got, they just have to meet the minimum with the public notification. It's,
That's helpful.
it's the same rules we have to follow on that.
And we did just want to give a high level overview of the Sherwood West concept plan. So 265 acres of employment land. This includes mixed use and hospitality, 340 acres, and this is net that we're talking. So after right of way and environmental takeouts, 340 net acres for housing land, density 6.3 to 9.2. 40 acres for schools, 20 acres for community parks, 500 acres for natural resources and open space. And then 3 really new zoning types, at least for Oregon, like maybe the country, a middle housing only zone, cottage cluster only zone, and then what we're calling a hospitality zone.
And there's really no in the state process to factor in the impact of topography, if it's steep slopes or whatever slope in housing units density, right?
Clarify?
So in theory, and historically, when you build on a hillside, they have not put as many units on the hillside.
Yeah.
Is that a,
Does it take that into consideration for the available land?
I think we took that with a,
Yeah.
they took that as the sort of concept of density.
Yes.
There.
Thank you. So the plan and the densities proposed at different, in different areas respond to the topography. And so we've proposed lower density on the hillside, higher density in the flat areas. So the concept plan responds to topography.
And just for the public who's watching, this concept plan came out of a citizen advisory committee, a technical advisory committee that met for a year to a year and a half.
2 years.
2 years.
years.
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years, and during that 2-year period, we took, lots and lots of public feedback. We had
Surveys, polls, open
surveys, polls,
houses.
open houses. So our community
Correct.
got to weigh in on this, which is after 6 years, of us putting off asking for
Yes.
waiting for all this to be done and for our community to have buy-in and weigh in.
Yes. And I have a slide on CAC input. So we'll get to that as well. Yep. So in terms of the number of units and the density proposed, this table 4 is in the concept plan. Really wanted to clarify this because the staff recommendation report from Metro really didn't respond exactly to our proposal. We did inform Metro, this slide I'll get into in a second, but this table shows 9.2 as a density. And we clarified with Metro prior to the release of that report that the 9.2 number was the high end of the density range. And we'll explain that in some detail in the next slides. And the low end of the density range is 6.3 approximately. And so we were disappointed when the COO recommendation, staff recommendation did not take that clarification into account. So we're gonna further work with Metro to understand how we really get them to understand that our proposal is 6.3 to 9.2 and potentially above with HB 2001.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, because, excuse me, and in fact, I just had a meeting with several Metro counselors today, trying to get that point across and what we were really saying in this, but the MH or the total housing units under percent middle housing, the reason we put that in the report, and it's explained in the narrative of the report, was just to show the potential impacts of HB 2001 if a developer decided to build something other than single family detached in a zone that allows for that. It was not ever meant to say we are fine with anything between 9.2 and 16.4 housing unit per acre. We've been working with Metro to correct that.
I mean, we show our low ends over there, and if you take the average of, the low end.
The math, yeah, Eric's gonna show a slide that kind of lays that all out, but this is kind of a key, there's a, I would characterize it as a misunderstanding right now, but we've been pretty clear, for a while. In our conversations that's what we really, when we worked with our community, it was a range of 6.3, sorry, to 9.2, and we did a lot of work with our community to get them to understand that, so.
And I'll have a slide, but since we're on, I'll explain it now. Basically, the approach was, we know that developers through the land use process tend to reach the high end of the density range in any zone, multifamily, single family, whatever it is. They're always gonna
More money.
they're always going to get to the higher end. And that's what we've been seeing. That's based on historical trends in Sherwood. So the CAC basically, recommended that in terms of the number of units likely to occur in Sherwood West, we showed the high end. And really that was to communicate with our public, our residents, what is actually likely to happen in Sherwood West. And so we use that high density number or the high end of the density range. That's the 9.2. And then the CAC also really understood that HB 2001 had the potential to increase even that high end of the range even further. And so that's where we put in the 10%, 20%, 50%. And really it was intended as a communication tool with the public to say, if we move forward with Sherwood West, what's likely to occur is 9.2. And what could occur, although unlikely, it could be up to 50%, and then we get the 5,500 unit number, roughly 16 units per acre.
Of course, that assumes we don't do master planning, which we'll talk about.
Yes. And so I think where the miscommunication is coming in with Metro now is based on the conditions of approval. Metro has picked up on the 9.2 number and tried to establish that as a new minimum. Where really it was intended to be shown as the likely outcome / maximum, because that's what's likely to happen. So we just really want to drill down on this point because it's a really important one. And so far we've advised Metro of that, but they have not responded to it. So we just want to be really clear, what the proposal actually is. And this slide really explains it in a lot more detail. So this table shows it's got a lot of numbers, but it shows the math at the low end and at the high end. So when you take the yellow number 6.3, that's when you multiply the number of acres times the low range of the density, take that all the way down, it's roughly 2,100 units, 6.3 units per acre net. When you do the math at the other end of the high end of the range is 9.2 units per acre. And then of course we have HB 2001, which would continue to increase that number. Again, we're likely to see around 9, probably 10 units per acre. If we get 10% middle housing, and that's going back to this slide, if we get 10%, in the base zones, we're at a density of 10.6. And we did that based on our understanding of what, Metro would like to see is that final outcome, the final target is around 10, and that's likely to be achieved through this plan. And again, now we're seeing it picked up as a new minimum number, which of course you guys will discuss tonight.
So, rumor on the street is Metro staff supposed to be pretty smart. Are they are they not smart, or are they just lazy, or are they reading what they're wanting to see?
So I've had conversations with multiple Metro councilors on this. I honestly believe it's not staff. I think this is coming from is my opinion, but I don't want to speak too much for them. Staff has been exceptional to work with. We don't always agree, but they've been responsive. They're working with us. I think they want to get it done, but they're accountable to their council. My take on it.
And this just explains it, but in writing. So CAC supported a minimum density of 6.3, target density of 8, with the understanding that with maximizing the base range plus HB 2001, it was likely to turn out between 9 and 10. Yep, that's the whole slide. I already said it, so move on to the next one. So in terms of the urban growth report and the staff recommendation that came out, that there is a recommendation for approval for the entire Sherwood West ask. So that includes residential, includes industrial, includes commercial. However, there's a very clear path, if you will, for the Metro Council to impose conditions of approval if they so choose. And we'll get into those conditions in just a second, but just really briefly, within the metro area over the 20-year planning period, Metro is expecting under the baseline forecast, which they're recommending, approximately 200,000 new households and 110,000 new jobs within the metro period over the next 20 years. Just a quick note, just what I see in this, we are proposing around 2,000 to 3,000 units. It is approximately 1% of the housing growth over the next 20 years, which is the planning period. I just want to make that point in terms of, context of the importance of Sherwood West relative to the region. And the growth that we're likely to see in the region. It's 1%. So I just want to put that out there.
Can you go back one slide real quick? One more. Correct that Metro had representation on the TAC for our Sherwood West concept planning process over the entire 2-year period. And at no point did that Metro representation object to the density that we were proposing and approved in our concept plan.
And you were on CAC.
Yeah, I was on the CAC. And then additionally, I believe we had to forward a final version of the concept plan to Metro for their acknowledgement. And again, we got no pushback on the density proposals at that time. Is that correct? Okay, so over, let's say 3 years now, this has been out there. They've seen it. They've been part of the process and had no complaints.
I have seen some minutes from the CAC that indicate that there was maybe one informal conversation with Metro where the number of 10 units per acre was thrown out. But again, I think that's where we, based on our concept plan, have met that expectation. And so now it's being picked up as a new minimum, which would force the density even higher. So I think that the very, very, very limited input that we got, the concept plan responded to that.
Yeah.
And that's where it landed.
Thank you.
Okay, so getting into the actual potential conditions of approval. The first one is around density or unit count in Sherwood West. And so this is where we are saying, hey, there's an issue that underlined the report basically says, the council, Metro Council could consider a recommendation to require between 9.2 and 16.4 units per acre. So again, this is where we're saying that's not what we're proposing.
Can I jump in, please? Yeah, because obviously, I don't think anyone here is saying our target should be 6.3, but that we are saying that was our range, 6.3 to 9.2. The other kind of challenge with this statement in the staff report when it says, in order to achieve a mix of housing types, we need more density. We're solving for that problem in terms of making sure that we have middle housing by zoning for it. Right, so the report's not recognizing the fact that we're creating a middle housing only zone, a cottage cluster only zone, that forces the development of those types of lots. So it's kind of funky how they put this together, but we've been talking to Metro about that and making sure they understand.
The other potential condition would be around affordability, and there's not a lot of detail in here, basically just saying that, the region has an affordability crisis and the Metro Council could consider conditions of approval to, I guess, require or encourage certain affordability measures or targets.
And if I could just add to that, so I've had a lot of conversations with Lynn Peterson, some of the counselors on this. I think we can get to a nice middle ground here. I don't think, and I just want to throw this out to see what people think, but I don't think we have any objection to having a component of our comprehensive planning to see what kind of tools and what kind of programs we could put into place that would allow for the development of, and be very specific, it would be subsidized housing, right? but we can allow for it. We can plan, see if we can develop tools, but as I've been telling them, we don't have the resources and the money to do that. And a lot of cities are telling Metro that right now. It's because it costs a lot of money, to those types of projects. And it takes a lot of partner and work and putting together a layer cake of funding to make those projects happen. And that, frankly, it's just an area that's gonna be difficult to do that in. So we've been pretty clear that we can't have any, aspirational conditions are great here. But conditions that say you must have 30% of the units be, affordable based on.
That's out of our control.
It's out of our
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we don't want to have that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we don't want to work toward that, but we got to be a little bit pragmatic and help approach it in a comprehensive. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to be fine here in language, but, based on the recent feedback that we're getting. So.
I'd just add two quick things to that. There's a House bill, it's HB 2003 from 2019. It's called commonly referred to as OHNA, OHNA. It's going to require us to relook at our housing needs analysis and actually stratify our housing, our proposal for housing citywide based on income level. And so in my opinion, a requirement around affordability, policy requirements, it's already coming down from the state. So we as a council, and we haven't really given you the heads up on that. Sean and I are looking at that now to figure out how to comply. We have a specific date for when we have to comply with that, by. And so in my opinion, this would be duplicate based on that House bill.
Does that go into effect January 1?
No, that's a different House bill. This one is like 27, 28. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
But I think one of the things that I'd like to encourage on that is it feels like we're willing to try to be creative about solving this affordability problem. And we have that mindset, right? We know that, we've got that's part of the housing crisis for this.
And I would say that our concept plan responds to affordability already.
Yeah.
Middle housing, cottage cluster only zones, we are guaranteeing a variety of housing already in the plan.
It just
Yeah.
doesn't spell out.
Has the billions of dollars, so if they want to turn around and.
Right, well, so that's the thing, is that there is some money that, there's this great project that the governor highlighted that was down in Medford, but it took partnerships between a very wealthy family that gave $1 million.
Yeah.
It took a bank partner, it took other, United Way and all these, and so layering all of those and getting, we're totally, we'd love to have a summit and start discussing that, but that would be an aspirational
That's all part of
goal.
the comprehensive planning.
That would be part of that master plan. Yeah, hey, this is gonna be an innovative housing zone or, whatever.
So when it comes to conditions, we're just committing to having that be part of our planning process.
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
not committing to any kind of specific outcome.
We can't have targets because we don't have enough control over them.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, MTAC had a little bit of time to digest this report, and my counterpart in Beaverton, 100,000 people in Beaverton now, maybe.
Yeah.
Basically strongly recommended against any type of affordability condition and said even the city of Beaverton would have a really hard time delivering affordable housing if it weren't for all these other programs. So it's just not, even at Beaverton, not feasible to do it on their own. So. But yes, I think we are, of course.
Needs to be in the, it can be aspirational.
Yes, I think
We'll
we're,
strive to XYZ.
yes, and I think we're all supportive of lowering housing costs in Sherwood. My concern, really truly concern, is we get a condition imposed and it just stalls development in Sherwood West. And the result is gonna be less development overall based on an affordability condition.
Yeah. In fact, I think that the variety, I think you said that word, right? That we're not trying to lower everybody's house cost in Sherwood, just be real clear about that. We have a lot of this one type of housing.
Yes.
And we need a variety of it because, yes, there's gonna be some apartments that are built in this plan that will be housing at the cheapest possible rate that you could get in Sherwood, potentially, but then there will be, the next step up with the cottage and other ones that as you need to expand, what we don't want to do is as soon as your family expands, you have to go to Canby or you have to leave the area. And we've now lost somebody who was going to put down roots, be in our schools, eat at our restaurants, all of that other stuff. And we also don't want to lose the people who, my kids have graduated. I want to downsize, but there's only single family housing available. It seems like I don't want to lose my whole social circle. I don't want to make all new friends in my sixties. I want to just move 4 blocks that direction.
Work hard for this, right?
I know, I've already got very few.
For a retirement center.
Yeah, I don't want to go to a retirement center. I just want to, I don't want to take care of a yard anymore, or something.
Upstairs.
Yeah, I don't want to go upstairs. and so that's just it, that variety part of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, let's keep
All right, keep going.
I'll move on. So, switching gears a little bit to industrial, there is some language around protecting, creating and then protecting large industrial sites. The number right now is 50 acres. So there would potentially be a condition to assemble land within that North District to achieve 50 acres.
And that's really important because if you look at the urban growth report, it says we have a surplus of industrial land. The problem is, don't quote me on this, but like the median lot size is.
In the 1 acre.
We're also working with this.
Yeah,
I think the only thing I'm
Well,
really
we're
worried
not
about is
completely-
that
Just let me finish. It's important that we have this condition around the lot size where it won't pass legal muster on an appeal. So that's why this is important, because the UGR says we have a surplus, but we don't have a surplus of lots.
we might just need to tweak the number.
Yeah.
But agree with the
Tweak the
condition.
number, flexibility, and they're willing to work with us on that, so.
Yeah, potentially. They've been pretty firm. Metro staff has been anyways on the 50 acre because that was the number that came out of the semiconductor task force report and said basically we have a need for a certain number of 50 acre sites. Sherwood West can provide those 50 acre sites. So I'm not sure how much room there is there.
I'm completely fine with.
The bigger the better.
Hardcore on industrial, bigger the better. But this misunderstanding on the residential needs to be fixed, or I'm not interested in doing it.
Clean industrial.
So, the other thing that the word that I'm thinking of as a planner, and I think that others are thinking of as well in terms of, what the density is going to be, is the state mandates that are coming down. Two in particular, HB 2001, we talked a lot about that. Then the other one from last year, the governor's housing bill, SB 1537. So I think the visual on the right is a really good visual of what we're thinking is not being taken into consideration right now about what the final outcome is going to be. We have our base density range 6.3 to 9.2, HB 2001 likely going to increase that. And then we have SB 1537 as well. We'll get into it in more detail. But basically that provides other areas for a developer, home builder to get additional density. And so we just really want to emphasize that what we are proposing is really likely the base. And there's going to be a lot of allowances that are outside of the city control that are going to increase that number.
And if I could just add, I know some of you know all this already, and some of this already, but we wanted to cover this because we know our community is watching, so they understand this as well. And obviously Metro's watching as well. So we just wanted to just cover this a little bit so people understand it.
And so we're not able to master plan unless it's in the UGB, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a comprehensive plan first.
Yep.
I don't think we need to get into the weeds on this necessarily unless you guys would like to, but basically HB 2001 allows a developer to do middle housing in the single family detached areas.
The key thing to remember here though is there is a carve out in HB 2001. If you do master planning, we can be a lot more specific about what type of housing goes on each lot. And so it gives.
And as long as you allow for the duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes within the master plan.
We have to allow duplexes on every single lot within that master planned area. We can't restrict duplexes. And then within that master planned area, we have to basically allow for or require 2 other types of middle housing.
We're gonna hit no problem.
Yeah.
Which will hit with their other zoning types. Yeah, so and this is an important message for our community. This is how we keep this and manage it from going to like 16 units per acre. Yeah.
It's a lot more certainty. Yep. And then the more recent bill that you guys are probably less familiar with, SB 1537. Essentially, so there's multiple layers of that bill, but one of them is around mandatory variances for housing. As long as a developer shows that the that the variance requested will reduce the cost of the housing. You know,
That's all you
there's,
need to say.
yes, I'll just stop there.
Everything will reduce.
There are certain variances that we'd be required to approve that would impact density. And so they're shown there, setbacks, lot size, building height. To me, building height is the big one. They could get a 1-story bonus or 20%, whichever allows a greater change to the height. And if that increase in height exceeds the density of that zone, we still have to approve it. So if the variance allows more density, you know, you still have to approve it. And so it's just another
Pretty
area.
low bar. The variance bar is really low.
Yeah, they basically just have
It's
to.
automatic. If they ask for it, they're gonna
It's,
get it.
it's automatic. They basically just have to make a statement that it will reduce the cost of the rental or the sale price, and we have to approve it.
We were able,
Of course it will.
when I say we, Sherwood was able to get an exception to that, building height on cottage clusters, so you can't use that variance on cottage cluster, so that preserves our single story, small footprint cottage cluster.
Yep, be able to age in
But
place.
all other,
Counselor Giles.
perfect, but
With the loft.
With a loft, yes.
Yeah, I think we call it like a 1.5 story.
One and a half, but they can't add another story and turn it into row houses, for instance.
but it applies to all other zones,
Yep, yes.
All of their housing.
housing zones, yeah, or housing types, okay. Interesting.
Including apartments. Yep,
And it's 20% or one,
whichever gets you more.
whichever gets you more.
And so I think it's just a really good visual as well of what the, you know, density and unit count impacts are like be. And so let's see, you know, the base range 6.3 to 9.2, if we have 0% middle housing, you know, that would be the range 6.3 to 9.2, and here would be the unit count. If we get 10%, density changes from 7.3 to 10.6 with this unit count, and of course, all the way down to 50. So it's a visual of how the density changes.
This doesn't factor in 1537, which. could
You know,
be those numbers.
we
Very hard to predict, I know.
We should clarify that SB, you know, master planning, yes, that's correct. But master planning probably doesn't get us out of SB 1537 unless there's some type of rulemaking that clarifies that.
And we haven't seen the rulemaking.
We haven't seen it yet. And then, you know, looking at other expansion proposals that were approved by Metro since 2018. Yeah, 2018 cycle, which had various cities get approvals, and then the 2023 cycle was Tigered alone. And the point we want to make here is that, you know, Metro has never imposed a condition that required a higher density or unit count than was proposed by the local community. And I'm sure you guys all know this, but Metro used to expand the urban growth boundary and then require a concept plan. And that led to issues like Damascus, where the community just said, sorry, we don't want this. Now, the path is the community has a concept plan and then the boundary gets expanded. And in my opinion, you know, that's leading to a different issue where you go through 2-3 year planning process, you get support from the local community, and then through 2 months of high level Metro hearings, the nature of the plan is significantly changed. And to date, Metro has never really changed the nature of those plans. And so on the right there, you see what was proposed by the community and then what the condition of approval was. So Frog Pond, 1300, Cooper Mountain, I don't have to go over all of them.
Do you,
I mean, if they want to add 5 units, I'll probably work.
We'll take it, all
do
right.
you know what the densities were? I remember, I think
No,
last
it's really
work
difficult.
session we had that, but.
We pulled that because it's really difficult to do apples to apples of these concept plans. And that would be some feedback that I would provide to Metro of, you know, when the city embarks on this concept plan, you need to provide clarity on how to calculate density, because it's really hard to tell actually what the density was in Frog Pond, and actually, because each city and consultant just did it their own way. I think the key is Metro always accepted the way they did it, and they reinforced that unit
So
count
those
through a
communities went
proposal.
through their concept planning process and then got accepted. We went through a 3-year process and ours are gonna possibly change.
Potentially, and I'll just point out River Terrace proposed 4,500 units and Metro conditioned them for 3,000. Sherwood is proposing a minimum of 2,100, and the condition, as it's written in the report now, is 3,000 to 5,500, which is a significant increase in density.
Is there a reason the River Terrace one dropped so much?
I don't know, we'd have to ask Metro.
I think they built it out anyway, so it's not.
That would be 2.0, that's 2.0, so I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
And then the last point is Metro Council has not imposed affordability conditions in the last two cycles as well.
Right, and so if there's this pending state or this on the horizon state law about the affordability thing, then why have two processes on the affordability thing? Just follow the state law.
Great, yep. Yep, which is gonna be, by the way, the state law is more detailed than what a metro condition would be. I mean, it's that the state law is gonna require us to plan all the way to from 0 to 30% MFI. And so, you know, that's it's gonna be even more restrictive than a metro condition.
Right, but there really could be some
We don't-
crazy twist of a metro thing that will make it difficult to put them all in the same
I
hopper.
think we're all in agreement, we can't have any conditions on affordability.
I agree.
Other than aspirational goals.
Yeah, so we put this slide together to kind of put it all in perspective, not just for folks in here, but also for our community that's listening. You know, when you look at Sherwood in its current condition, we run about 7 to 8 units per acre. 5,800 average square foot lot. The proposal we put out, you take the average is 7.75. And 5,600 square foot lot, so it's not a lot different, the proposal that we submitted to Metro than what you're currently seeing in Sherwood. There's been a lot of rumors out that it's gonna look like what we've seen on, River Terrace, on Roy Rogers. That is not what we're planning for, and that's what we're trying to make sure it doesn't happen, but this is just to kind of give everyone some perspective and how to visualize what we're talking about. And of course, the Metro recommendation goes to a much higher density. Yeah.
Well, and what this shows is that our concept planning process. A lot of people like keep Sherwood looking like Sherwood, and that's exactly what our concept.
And on the flip side of that, I would also say that I think everyone can realize and accept that. Like, as time goes, like, with the housing crisis we're in, there is gonna be more density in the future than there was in the past. And I think we're all willing to accept, even up to the 9.2, we're talking about, okay, we're going from 7.5 to 9.2. I think through the 2-year process and all the feedback we got from the community that was an acceptable amount of, yeah, we need more density, we need, for all the reasons we all talk about, and everyone is on board with that, but go from 7.5 to 9.2, okay, you're talking about a 20% density increase. It's minimally different than what we currently love about Sherwood, right? Going to 12, that's very different.
Yeah, 12 on average, right? But that means that the dense stuff is gonna be very different than what I have in Sherwood right now. Yeah, anything else?
And to state the obvious, we don't have the infrastructure for 12, right? We don't have the public transportation, even that Beaverton has. They've got how many buses that go in and out of there? They've got all that, stuff. And so we would need, let's say, $10 or $15 million to get a new hub on 99. And oh, by the way, we got to widen 99 now because we've got so many, like all of a sudden we're trying to solve, to your point, 1% of the housing crisis here, and let us work with Metro and be a partner in that and all of the other stuff. We're not going to be able to solve all of the problems of the housing crisis in Sherwood.
Yes,
Right?
I think that's very well said and something that I've been thinking about a lot.
Okay.
Yes, I agree. And you guys have said this a lot here, we are significantly different in location and built environment and resources and everything else than even the city of Tigard, for example.
Yeah.
Even though we're both in Washington County, we're close neighbors, we are actually on the edge. Transit is different. We don't have transit. I mean, all sorts of things and why the one size fits all, even in the metro, just doesn't make sense for sure.
Well, it clearly is one size doesn't fit all from that previous slide. And if the concern was really about shortage of housing, they let one jurisdiction condition with way less than their plan was even, so that makes no sense.
So to go back to the average of 12, what would that look like? Can you visualize it for me? Create a concept for me.
I mean, if we're looking at 12 units per acre, it's gonna be like fairly dense townhome style development approximately.
So kind of like what's happening in Newburgh on the as you're going to Newburgh on the right-hand side?
That would be lower.
That's lower than 12.
That was like lower than 12.
So River Terrace currently, you go, that's around 13,
Really?
14 right now.
Yeah.
What about over by Target with the townhomes there? Is that 12?
Probably less.
The townhomes themselves might be 12, but if
Yeah.
you look at the whole thing, it's probably more like 9 or 10.
Okay, no, I'm just thinking about just the townhome area.
But you're thinking that
Because
Newburgh
River
is-
Terrace has single-family homes in it. Like when you drive into River Terrace, it just looks like a normal neighborhood. It's just they've got all of those
Yeah.
apartments on the wall.
It is better when you get inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our apartment, so if our multifamily zone, which is the apartments in Sherwood or condos, is at minimum of 16 up to 24. And so 12 would be slightly less than apartments, but a lot more than certainly a single detached. So it's in between.
And keep
Apartment
in mind, it's
complex.
an average, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to visual, I'm a very visual person. I've got to be able to see it.
we can
Makes
provide,
sense.
we do have a book, stop by planning department anytime.
Stop by, look at the.
Sean found it's
I'll
called
come look at it.
Visualizing Density.
Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
by.
So you have it? Okay. Bye-bye.
And then, you know, we just wanted to reinforce one of our main concerns, certainly one of my concerns in planning here of, you know, we went through a very long process with the Sherwood community. The Sherwood community is you know, the residents here and the city. We have the skin in the game relative to other jurisdictions, other residents, and, you know, put together a plan that was supported by the community through a 2-year planning process. And we have a lot of concerns about an approach that would, you know, significantly change the nature of our future community through 2 or 3 months of public hearings with, you know, decision makers, frankly, that are from other areas. And so, you know, my
And
question.
lobbyists who have other interests.
My view from a just a purely planning point, not even a political standpoint, but just a planning fundamental point, you know, is there gonna be an open house in Sherwood? Is there gonna be, you know, anything that any engagement with our community around the conditions of approval and what those conditions are actually gonna mean for Sherwood West? Or is this just gonna be through public hearings, you know, in downtown Portland? So just want to put that concern out there from a planning standpoint about public participation.
Because the
process
statewide
problem.
planning goal number 1. The
Yeah,
opportunity for citizens to something.
yeah, and just really quickly on this, you know, statewide planning goal 1 says basically, you know, there has to be citizen involvement at all steps of the planning process. The big focus in goal 1 is around the comprehensive planning process. You know, Metro's condition will require certain requirements of our comprehensive plan and our comprehensive plan for Sherwood West. And so really a condition is preempting that planning process as well. And again, there hasn't been any outreach to the Sherwood community, residents and stakeholders about those conditions and how that would impact the nature of the new neighborhoods in Sherwood West.
Other than, you know, submit comments. I mean, but they haven't done town halls out here. They haven't done surveys.
The only people that are gonna see that are the people that.
Maybe
are
Metro.
plugged in.
They'd be Metro, yeah.
And the Sherwood community is not gonna go to Portland to give comments.
And so, you know, the first thing that we have planned is, you know, we did bring in Carrie Richter, who's our land use attorney on this. We do have a meeting with Metro staff and their legal counsel on Wednesday to basically discuss this issue around the density. And then also, really explore our options on behalf of you guys. So, the options in order, for moving forward. And Tim, please jump in here if you'd like, but continue to negotiate conditions aligned with our community and our adopted concept plan. Explore the process for just completely pulling our proposal or discuss the process for revising our proposal.
So
Or
I think what we need to do is have staff prepare, whether it's a resolution or an ordinance, I don't know which. Both B, what?
Could be just a letter.
Yeah, well, for both, or whatever we need, for both B and C, right? So that we have them ready to go at any point in time. And C being revise it to industrial area only, in my opinion. But then at any point in time, if we don't like the way, I continue to negotiate, continue to work, we all want this to happen, but if it's not looking like it's gonna happen, then I wanna be able to, we need to call an emergency session, we call an emergency session and we pull out either a polling of the proposal or an industrial only ask and we proceed at that point in time. But I wanna have that ready to go.
So, I've been, this isn't gonna be news for Metro or anything like this, because this has been part of my conversations with them, because it's been some of our previous conversations. I've been very clear with them based on our last work session that our number is 9.2. I'm sorry,
9.2, 6.4.
well,
It's the range.
it's
But
the
9.2 is the top.
range, but the problem is they put our range, their bottom of their range is the top of our range, and if you want any hope of getting this over the hurdle, you're gonna have to minimum come down to the top of our range, right? And I've been made that very clear in all the meetings that I've been having, because that was the direction I got from everyone in the room in our last meeting. I think Doug's right, we should have these. We need to find out what the process is from our attorneys and what our rights are around this, but just we need to have all this in our hip pocket because we may need to move quickly depending on what our options are. And maybe that they come around and we get it to where we need to go.
Cause I would
I'd like this to go
assume,
through.
I would assume if we revise our proposal, let's say to industrial only. That their COO, I mean, they're gonna have to change their recommendation, they're gonna, I mean.
That's
they're-
not, but it's not even gonna meet our housing needs. If we go
Yeah.
into just industrial,
It feels like that doesn't really solve, it's a solution nobody likes. I mean, we'll have some more
One of the Metro
industrial.
councilors actually suggest that, Tim?
makes sense.
Maybe, yes, I'm just being a little careful with those conversations, but yes, but I think, if, for me, if it's a choice between having high density housing or just getting our industrial land, I'll just get our industrial land.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not the
but it
ideal
feels,
solution.
yeah, it feels like, okay, then we now have to spend another, 2 years and how much comprehensive plan to try to figure out
Not
our.
our fault.
I understand it's not our fault, but that's why I want to try to figure out a way to get to yes, right? And so I'm with Doug a little bit. Let's continue to be creative and thinking about this. But part of it is we've really got to push back and we're not going to solve all of the housing crisis in Portland in Sherwood West, right? And we don't have the tax base to do it. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have, let us solve this part of the housing problem and be good partners with that and I would say, yeah, I guess if the industrial land will give us, more of a base to build out that infrastructure, then I guess I'd be that's a good plan B. But
And I think that's all we're saying, that's a
Yeah.
plan B at this point, because our option, I mean, obviously, we're gonna continue, we'll wanna see what's said at their work session here on Thursday night. And MTAC and MPAC and CORE will be weighing in, I mean, we don't have to figure this out today.
yeah,
I think what we're saying is, we need to understand what that looks like, and if there's work to get those things in place and just have available, we need to have it available. I think that's all we're saying at this
So
point.
clarifying question, when you're saying move just to industrial, you're not talking about the whole swatch of land being industrial. You're talking about moving forward with the land that
Just
we
that-
talked.
Just the
okay.
part, just the
Thank
section
you.
we talked about. No.
Clarifying that.
No, it would just be.
Yeah.
whole-
Right.
Like, why the hell would we do that?
Not against that.
No. I am, I'm against it.
And then,
No,
I totally lost my train of thought.
That's a great-
Wait a minute.
it's a great clarification.
So going back then to the first one, the continue to negotiate, I like that best. Can we request that Metro comes out and does some talking points with our community? Since we did did all of our planning around our community once it, Craig's laughing at me.
We got 2 months and we've done this for 3 years.
We can ask.
I think it'd be an important ask personally. And then I would want to know if truly we want to pull out, I want to know what the ramifications of that, what that would be. And when the land would come up again for a request.
3 years.
3 years.
3 years,
Six.
6 years, there's a mid-cycle and a 6-year cycle, who knows, I would love to see us get this done. If we can get Metro down to a density that our community is gonna buy into. I think if it doesn't get done, we run a high risk of having Salem impose more preemption. It's only gonna get worse, so, you know, and for those in the community.
In my heart, I want to think the best of everyone in the Metro building downtown and that there was just a misunderstanding and that they will realign.
But let me finish my thought, and I appreciate your sentiment, but if we don't master plan this, you know, and we haven't talked a lot about this meeting, it's really important. We don't get, one of the reasons I'm supportive of bringing all of it in at this point, if you'd asked me 4 or 5 years ago, I'd say part of it. But with the climate and preemption that's occurring, and the legislative environment that we're facing, in Salem, if we don't get this in, get a comprehensive plan and get a master plan, who knows what this environment's gonna look like down the road. And, so I think it's in our best interest to get this planned out. It doesn't mean it's all gonna come at once and all of a sudden, 5 years from now, that's all developed. It's just in urban growth boundary, it's not in the city. There's all kinds of processes around annexation agreements and development agreements and annexation processes that allow us to throttle it over time. So it's just for people listening, you know, we are a long, years and years and years away from, even if this is approved, from anything happening out there. So, just to be clear, yes, Kim.
Yeah, I'm in favor of those in order, in that order, but definitely the continuing, to clarify, what might be a misunderstanding. But holding strong to our concept plan and what our community wants, I'm not ready to let fear of what Salem's gonna do growing into higher density than our community wants.
Yeah, I'd rather have nothing than.
Yeah.
If something people don't want, the committee's been very loud and clear about what they want, what they don't want.
The whole purpose of planning this is so we can manage that growth in a way that's compatible with the city of Sherwood overall. And if we bow to higher densities today, we're defeating the purpose of that, so. Yes,
Yeah, again, I think I'm hopeful it is all a big misunderstanding that they that they are still unclear on the whole concept of these new state laws and how it allows for the flexibility of duplexes on single lots and other middle housing and
Something we've been talking about for 3 years.
Yeah.
Objection.
So, yeah, but in order of preference on those three, it is, negotiate, then revise if it can be revised, and then say, okay, we are at impasse, and we just move on.
Oh, yes, I agree. I said in that order, but I would revise prior to pulling out.
KCB.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, all that we're suggesting, and Eric and I talked about, is we have all this in our hip pocket and don't wait till the last minute to understand how to do it. So just preparing for those options.
Well, we have to, even if we send them a letter, they can still pass something, probably. Let the experts give us that feedback.
That's what
But even
that's
anything
what the
that
first one is all about. Yeah.
we still have to agree to it all.
I have a couple questions. Yeah, Dan, sorry.
So the density numbers that they've recommended are coming from our slides, our proposal, as far as you know, there isn't a justification from Metro why they chose those.
They're pulling it out of our concept plan, yes.
Okay.
But again, before they released those numbers, we made it very clear to them what we clarified table before they released those numbers.
Okay, and the concept plan is pretty clear that the middle housing numbers are just there to show potentials.
Sure.
That was
I
not.
was curious if Metro included any explanatory statements for the density, and if not, if they provide why they're choosing that, if it's not a clerical error on their part for.
It was, based on my conversations with, Metro staff, they understood our clarification and released those numbers anyways.
Zero, if we're wrong, if we're unsuccessful, so be it. I'm fine with pivoting to something else.
All right, so we're all good with plan, basically it's the same plan we've already
Get it
had.
to work out.
Yeah, we try and get to work out. Maybe let's go ahead and assume we'll need a work session in 2 weeks. see where we're at. Because we'll have,
People work session every meeting.
We'll have-
days.
we'll have more events will have occurred. Some of the groups will have met, we'll know more, so.
I don't know, Renee, if they would come out and take feedback here in our own community.
We can ask.
Possible, but we can ask.
We can ask. I suspect they're gonna say, we put a poll out, so anyways, you got some great restaurants.
Fully on point.
Let me ask, so we just have a couple minutes. We have, the other item on our work session agenda was the legislative priorities discussion. So we can handle this two ways. Has everyone had a chance to look at it? We can, a couple ways. We can just come back into a work session after regular session here and finish that up for executive session. Or I was talking to Craig about it, if you're comfortable and there's enough material there and you just want to send Craig what your top 5 are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Craig can tally it and then send that back out to all of us in email. And unless there's objections, he can send that to OC.
That's fine, we've done that in the past.
Works for me.
Everybody?
Yeah. Like being. I like people convincing me of their tops, but pretty much,
There's a little discussion of it, but
yeah, I like a discussion, but I didn't think it would be a long discussion, but, I don't know.
Let's do a work session then.
We can do
We have
that. We
people
can-
interested, let's do it.
We can meet for a little bit after
It's
this.
our meeting out there is gonna be it's short.
I have a. Can we do the exec session first?
No, you guys do the work.
I kind of have a.
Um,
Tonight.
We can start our regular meeting a little bit late. Want to get just
We want to go over right now?
sort of.
Okay.
That is semi. That's the Craig and Kristen, so.
Let's just meet after the meeting.
Can we do the exec session first?
Keith, would you-
Yeah, I just send you my
You're gonna
my 4, so you can do it after and I'll just let you guys,
Okay.
you know, my vote on the priorities.
All right, well, we are adjourned then and we will meet for regular session here in about 5 minutes.